When living in Florida, it's either change or complain. We're going to be talking about things going on in the market. We're going to be talking about what's going on around town. And heck, maybe even what your neighbors are thinking about you. We're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name is Craig Cunha. I'm a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida. And if you are looking for a channel to tell you everything you need to know about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the little bell so you're notified every time, and start your search on the MLS at ournextfloridahome.com to get yourself going. I'm getting calls from people every day, and I absolutely love it. And if you've got a question that you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. All right, so we're going to be talking about changes and complaining because there's lots of both of those going on here in Southwest Florida. Again, I'm in Cape Coral, very close to Fort Myers, spent a lot of time in both, and all these things that you're going to hear about are right here, near and dear to our area. And you can see it, things have been hectic, a little bit of extra gray coming in because I just am constantly trying to find new ways to communicate this stuff to you guys, and I hope that it's beneficial. If any of this is helping you out, leave a comment down below to tell me what you think. But let's go ahead and jump in on our first thing, and this one might just make you cringe a little bit. This is what's going on in our market. Number one is change. This is the first change that we're going to talk about, and there is a gentleman that's out and about in our area, and he called me randomly the other day telling me about a site that he had put up for sale. And he said, hey, I noticed you sold something in the area, so I wanted to make sure you knew this one was available too. Took down his name, took down his number, looked up in the tax roll just to see what the property was really about, because he gave me a price. And I found the name on it was not him. And the owner did not live here. So I started digging a little bit. I eventually found the person that owned the lot. He said, yes, I did agree to sell him the property, but I wasn't aware he'd start marketing it and selling it before he closed on it. So this guy went ahead and he basically took out an option on this land without ever telling the seller that's what it was. Once again, no representation from a real estate agent. A lot of things can go sideways. So this guy's going to sell his lot for $60,000. The other guy trying to tell me about it for one of my buyers is selling it for $70,000. The kicker, $100 in escrow. What does that mean? If he doesn't have this thing aligned with another buyer within 45 days, he loses $100. But guess what? If he finds that buyer, he's making $10,000. So know what you're getting into when a property transaction is happening. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, and you don't want to be losing out on $10,000 if you don't have to, do you? Now under the complaint category, the first one is Cape Coral is now putting a new regulation into place, or at least they're voting on this. And what it is they want to be able to restrict the amount of time that you can have your storm shutters up on your home. Because again, it can be unsightly in some cases. If you weren't the person that color-coded your shutters to the rest of your house and it just stands out like a sore thumb, yeah, it's unattractive. But aside from the reason why they look unsightly, you also have to think about the safety parts of things. You cannot get out of your house with these shutters on. So if there's a fire in your house, you're not getting out through the windows. Those things are screwed in panels. And this is where the fire department is now having concern. Like, if we don't get this regulation in place and somebody's trapped inside, we can't get them out. Hey, that's not good for anybody. So that is a concern, as well as for getting these shutters taken down. But the timelines are talking about 5 days before a storm and no more than 2 weeks after the storm. Again, once you start putting rules into place and asking for people to abide by them, the complaints start. Within that same strain though, seasonal people are saying, but yeah, what about the security of my home when I'm not here? That's the part where maybe you make nicey nice with your neighbors. They know who you are, they know when you're around, and they can kind of watch after your house for you, maybe even have a home watch service. But the shutter part shouldn't be your first line of security. Get a security system. It's what, $50 a month at the most? Put the cameras in, you can monitor the whole house. So don't use security as the reason that you need these shutters up on your house. This next one is a change and complaint. I had to do these together because it's kind of near and dear to my heart, and it's also, I can see both sides of this issue. And they're talking about taking the Sanibel Causeway and turning it into more of a tourist location. What I mean by that is 400 parking spots that are paved, restrooms, shelters, basically converting this old Florida kind of beachfront where people just back right up to the shoreline and throw a fishing line in, or the kids jump in and go swimming, or you know what, the windsurfers are out there and they're really not happy about this whole thing. Also, the parking out there to enjoy all this natural Florida is free. Do you think once all that other stuff gets put in, it's going to be free anymore? Probably not. So that's why that's under a change and complaint. This complaint was kind of odd to hear, but there's Floridians out there, yes, actual residents, that are leaving notes on cars with out-of-state license plates telling them they're not welcome here and they have to leave. I don't know what to say about that. I apologize to anybody out there that received one of these messages. I apologize for my fellow Floridians. That's kind of intrusive and rude for them to do. But this is where, when people feel hurt and feel like they have a right and they feel entitled, they're going to put things out there like that, and it doesn't make any of us look good. Now, I'm going to give you an example of why you might get a message. There's people now that are complaining about jet skis running full bore through the freshwater canal system. Well, guess what? If your agent would have told you about that when you moved in the house, you wouldn't have a problem. That's one reason people buy the houses on the canal, because there are no speed limits in the freshwater canals. There's no manatees in there to protect. And yes, it may not be perfect as far as noise. You might not like hearing the jet skis whip around. But what you look at as your peace and serenity is what these people look at as their entertainment factor. So you have to do your homework, do your due diligence, talk to your trusted advisor, make sure you're getting all the information about what could I possibly be stepping into when I'm buying a property like this. If this is you and you're complaining about jet skis running full bore on freshwater canals, you might want to just consider moving. Under change, we all know about the shortages and all the craziness that's going on. We're having gas shortages and food shortages and everything else. Hell, even toilet paper was on a shortage. So there's all kinds of things that we can complain about. Housing right now is obviously a shortage. But you know, one thing that isn't in a shortage is the supply of money. People have money throughout the country, and they're still going to be applying it towards real estate. So all these shortages that we're seeing, especially in the real estate market, people keep wondering, how high can it go? Well, how much money do they have? Because at this point, I'm starting to hear some prices in certain areas that have never been where they are now. But with this drive and demand and the shortages, that's what's happening. Hell, you see it in vehicles, you see it in boats, you see it in trucks. Everything is in a shortage. And when the shortages are affecting the supply, you have to pay more money to get it. Take the people in 2012. They bought a home very well. They have a lot of money in their homes. But guess what they can't do? Buy something else. All this money that they made, now they can't even move on to something, because once they sell theirs, all the money they just made goes into something else. So your money sitting in your home, while it's nice to say that, hey, my home's worth X, is it really worth that? Because the money you made from the time you purchased to the time you're selling still has to buy you a place to live. So unless it's an investment home, you're still behind the 8 ball like everybody else. Now, a complaint to follow right under that change is the water sewer conversion. We've talked about this before. It's a process that is going to be about 1.5 years in most neighborhoods. It's about a $20,000 expense that gets tacked onto your tax bill. It follows the home, so you don't have to pay it all off at once. But what we really need to talk about, and this is where the complaint really comes from, is the mess and inconvenience that comes from it. Things are torn up. Things are nasty. They're dirty. Dirt's on everything. Your car, your house, your lanai, your pools, all of it's going to have dirt. And on top of this, we're seeing this in some of our areas, and this one is happening really due to an expansion on the Nicholas Parkway. There's a point where whenever they make this conversion, you have to disconnect the supply until it's connected properly before they turn it back on again. We're starting to see disconnections of water service for 8 and 10 hours a day. Yeah, so that inconvenience, and I can see the complaints. I'd probably be one of them complaining, because we all need water. And if you're somebody especially that's working from home now, you're remote, you're really loving life, now you can't have water. Hey, One more thing to consider if you're going to be buying in an area that's going to have a water and sewer conversion at some point. When's the conversion coming? And do I really want to deal with it? All right, so under change, we're going to follow right up with that first scenario where the gentleman was using an option on somebody's land. When you're getting into a real estate transaction, there's been more and more fraud popping up both in rentals and in purchases. And in the rental situation, they're using Facebook Marketplace, pretending they own the home, taking deposits, and having multiple people affected by this at one time. There's also another scam going on where you can buy a house and they're telling you they're going to remodel it for you. So now you're going to put all these deposits down, getting everything lined up. Once again, they don't even own the houses. So you have to really do your homework. Make sure you're working with a trusted advisor, a real estate agent that is proven to you and knows what they're doing in this market, because having somebody on your side is even more important right now, not just for fraud issues. But there's some people out there thinking that, hey, if I go right to the listing agent and put my offer into them, I have a better chance of getting this because they get both sides of the transaction. Is that really true though? Where does their loyalty really lie? They started with the seller. Their fiduciary duties fall under that seller. Yes, they can't be lying to you purposefully, but they have that duty to the seller. You're not getting full representation. Bring your own representation and put together a strong offer that can still compete without having to go directly to the listing agent. This also applies with builders. The salespeople with builders, who feeds them? Who pays their check? The builder. And I had another client this week that confirmed the builders told them point blank that whether you have an agent or not, your price doesn't change. Because a lot of people are going to builders thinking that, hey, I'm going to get a lower price because I don't have a real estate agent that gets a commission. That's not true. It's already built into their price. So your decision is, do I want somebody representing me and telling me what to look out for? Or do I want to go it alone and just trust the sales agent that works for the builder? Now, this one was just plain crazy. This is under complaint, but this is a complaint where it's actually acted out. There's no words going to happen here. But off of State Route 82 and Daniels Boulevard, I think this was a morning rush hour thing. Road rage got the best of a couple guys. I don't know, at first it looked like two teen lovers rolling around on the ground, but it turns out these guys were fighting, I guess is what they call it. In any case, it ended without anybody being seriously hurt. Doesn't appear any of the vehicles were damaged, but this is just another thing that you can find maybe a little closer to the Lehigh border, but a lot of people around here, a lot of frustration, a lot of things not going their way, and in some cases they act out on it. Okay, this falls again under you doing due diligence and driving around and having competent people working with you and giving you best information. There was a woman that ended up moving into a neighborhood and having a car wash nearby that she could hear at all hours. Now, with this, there's something you can do to avoid having this happen to you by simply checking what the vacant lots around the home you're buying are zoned as. If it was zoned as a commercial lot, when this car wash was put on there, see again, they don't have to tell you what's going on the commercial lot. It's just a commercial lot, not residential. So you're not going to be surrounded by houses if it says commercial. You're going to have some kind of business there. Now, businesses operate at all hours. So if you don't get that in check and don't do your homework to find out what is going to go on around you, you could very well get in this same situation as this woman did. And I can understand her frustration. Now she needs to hear these noises all the time, and nobody ever told her that was the case. So please make sure you're doing your homework and you're having your representation do their homework so that you're not caught in the same mess as she is. Here's another complaint. Fort Myers Beach just approved to put cameras up around the town. Yep, Big Brother's going to be watching down there. So perfect time for it to happen. It's supposed to happen in the next couple weeks. And what's happening for us? Spring break. Oh yeah, we're in pre-spring break right now and it's already crazy. So you can imagine what these cameras are going to be picking up. But there's mixed feelings. Some people feel like it's a good thing and it'll give another sense of security to being able to move around the city, because they're going to be putting them down in town center and a number of places down along San Carlos Boulevard. So you could find yourself on camera. Be certain that whatever you're doing, you're okay with people seeing, whether it's on a social media feed or in the local news, because it very well could be you when these cameras start working. Now here's a change, and if you're somebody that's renting, you have to be really careful of this. I'm hearing a lot more renters running into situations where now the seller or the owner of the property wants to sell their property. And that puts you in a bind because you have a lease. And whether you're on a month-to-month lease or an annual lease, that makes a difference. Do you have a clause in there that allows either side to break that lease? And in a month-to-month, you literally have no recourse. The problem there is there aren't any rentals to move to. So if your owner decides to sell their property and you're one of those people that has nowhere to go, there's not much to tell you. I get calls from people every day asking about rentals and how they can get information about rentals and what's the best way to get a rental, because they can't find anything. So this change, we're going to continue to see this as long as those values stay up. These investors that want to just cash out while they can, it's taking renters out of their home and making the rental market even tighter. So if you're somebody that's on the fence between should I buy or should I rent, keep in mind, if you start a rental, check the rental terms, make sure there's no way for the seller to get out, because if they sell that home and the new owner is not willing to take on your lease, you could find yourself on the street. Another complaint that we have in the area, we have some neighborhoods that are mixed use. So when I mean mixed use, it can be multifamily properties like a duplex, a triplex, it can be 4 units, 16 units, whatever it is. These are rental properties. They can be mixed in with single family homes. So what was happening here in Cape Coral, or currently happening, is somebody in an area like this is getting their groceries down the street and rolling them home in a shopping cart and leaving the shopping cart at the side of the road. So if this isn't something you want to see, again, pay attention to the neighborhood when you're driving around. Look and find out, is it a rental area? Is it a residential area? And again, you can ask people about this and find out more for yourself. But the best way to find out is to drive the areas and see for yourself. This week it was reported, I'm calling BS, I'm just done with all of this. Bird flu. Yeah, the first case of bird flu is in Southwest Florida. I don't believe any of the further afflictions that can be thrown on us. It's one thing after another. If it's something you want to believe, go ahead, wear a mask further. I'm just not buying into it. But it is reported, so I want to let you know that it's here. So protect yourself from the bird flu. All right, so what I'm learning now as a new boater in the area is that it gets windy in the wintertime. One thing about the wind is it obviously makes the water choppy, so it's not as pleasant to be on the boat. But if you're going to the beach, the wind should also concern you there, because what it does, it changes the current, which can also cause rip currents. That's dangerous for swimming. If you get caught in a rip current, they say don't try to fight it, swim sideways, swim parallel to the shoreline to get out of it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself dragged out and under further than you want to be, and it can become a pretty hairy situation. As I told some people this week in social media, I went to the pump the other day and I had the wonderful experience of being able to fill my truck. Actually, not even fill my truck. I think it's maybe 3/4 of the tank. 25 gallons for $125. Yes, $4.89 was the price for me to put a gallon of gas in. And the next day, it was at $4.99. So we are right there at the $5 mark for the premium and diesel fuels. So if you want to know what the cost of living is in Florida, I'm here to complain. So this is under complaint. I'm here to complain that we're about $5 a gallon, and from what they're saying, it's only going north from there. And one of the things that's not really a change for us, but here with our weather, I already mentioned how it's windy. Obviously, it's getting hot now in the mid 80s. It's high 80s some days, and we're very dry. We don't get a lot of rain this time of year, so it's feeding into all kinds of things that can cause fires. So we hear about fires all throughout the country. Florida is no exception. I know it's humid here most of the year, and everybody talks about that. But we have our dry time too. That's when the grass gets brown. They even caution about driving cars, hot cars where the engine's still very warm, up into longer grass. That can start a fire. If you're a smoker and you flick your butt out the window, again, fire hazard waiting to happen. So pay attention. If you're somebody that's doing anything that can cause a spark or has a heat element to it, if you're around a dry area, be very careful. All right, so that's living in Florida. Change or complain. And again, we're getting constant complaints, lots of change. It's going to be happening more and more, so look out for another version of this somewhere down the road. I'm sure it's going to be there. But if you have any questions about living in the area, check out one of these other videos. And if you've got a specific question for me, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.